Hi there, it's a Donkey Storm, and welcome to my Disc for Dummies guide for patch 10.2 Dragonflight Season 3 Mythic Plus. In this guide, I hope to get you feeling confident to heal the keys as a Disc Priest and give you a basic understanding of how to play the spec. Disc has been long thought of as a really difficult spec to play, but with the recent rework this patch, it has become a lot more accessible. In this guide, we're going to talk about talents, stats, the healing rotation, cooldowns, and utility, so check out the timestamps if you're looking for something specific. Here's the talent setup I've been running with the new patch. There's a few things to consider after the rework. First of all, Schism has been baked into Mind Blast, which is now on an 18-second cooldown, so although you still have the talent, you no longer need a Schism button. Same goes for Shadow Covenant. It's now baked into Shadow Fiend, or in our case, Mindbender, so that's another spell you can take off your bars. We're also dropping Expiation, and Harsh Discipline is no longer something we need to actively keep track of. We have a cool but slightly dangerous new cooldown with Ultimate Penitence that we'll talk about more in the rotation section, and since we're running a Mindbender heavy style, we take Essence Devourer on the class side to increase our benefit from it. There are a few slight variations on talents being played right now, but this has served me pretty well so far. You can find the talent import in the description below. For stats, Disc is going to benefit from Intellect, Haste, and Versatility, followed by Crit, and last, Mastery. Haste is going to allow you to get your spells out faster, and Verse is nice since it buffs both our healing and DPS output, as well as adds some defensiveness, which is something Priest sorely needs. We also have a new tier set coming in Season 3. The 2 set bonus causes Smite and Penance damage to get increased by 20%, which is awesome, and have Smite extend an Atonement by 2 seconds, and your 4-piece gives Smite a chance to cast a second time during Shadow Covenant as Shadow damage. Pretty good tier set for damage. It's not going to change the way we play at all, but one thing to note if you played in Season 2 is that we will not be getting those instant cast Radiances anymore. We'll have to remember how to play with Radiance having a cast time, which is likely going to feel a little icky when we first drop the old 4 set. Disc is a unique healer, as the majority of your healing done comes from the damage that you do. This is done through Atonement, a buff you put on allies that causes them to take a percentage of your damage done as healing. Disc gameplay revolves around maintaining these atonements and using your damage abilities to properly maintain your party's health. Atonements can be given through a few spells: Power Word Shield, Flash Heal, Renew, and Power Word Radiance. In a Mythic Plus setting, you will generally use Power Word Shield to apply single target atonement, most often on the tank, Radiance for 2 or more targets, and then spend Surge of Light procs on Flash Heals to renew or put out new atonements as necessary. Renew won't see a ton of use here. You're going to want to keep Atonement up on the tank at pretty much all times, and then basically use Radiance whenever anyone else is taking damage. You won't spend a lot of time spot healing or spot atoning as Disc. Your basic rotation pretty much boils down to 2 phases, inside Shadow Covenant and outside of it. Shadow Covenant is activated by casting Mindbender, which is on a 1-minute CD, but gets reduced when you cast Smite, Mind Blast, and Penance, so in reality it's actually much shorter. You do considerably more healing inside Shadow Covenant, but it's not something you want to hold on to much. Generally, I'd recommend just sending Shadow Covenant unless there's imminent scary damage coming that you know you're going to need it for. Your Shadow Covenant rotation is going to be Mindbender, Mind Blast, Penance, Shadow Word Death, Smite until Penance comes back, Penance, Shadow Word Death again if you can squeeze it in. This is obviously excluding any healing spells you need to cast within your Shadow Covenant window to maintain atonements, and that is something you definitely need to do at times, so this rotation can be flexible. Every time you cast a Penance, Mind Blast, or Shadow Word Death, your Mindbender does an ability called Inescapable Torment, which does a lot of damage and extends the duration of Mindbender. We want to maximize this by getting as many of these 3 spells out during the Mindbender window as we possibly can. Outside of Shadow Covenant, we mainly want to cast Penance on cooldown and Smite as much as we can to get that Mindbender back. We also want to make sure we're maintaining our dots. Penance automatically spreads your dots for you, and you're going to be casting that a lot, so this isn't too hard to do anymore, especially without Expiation eating away at our dot time. You'll generally enter a pull by throwing a couple dots down, and then spread them by casting Penance. Since we're talented into Rhapsody, you'll also want to cast Holy Nova at 20 stacks. You've also got Power Word Life, which is a very useful spell, but kind of lives outside of your do damage to heal idea. Power Word Life is only castable on targets below 35% and heals them for a lot. Blizzard has removed the skill play around this ability of trying to target people at low health to reduce the cooldown. Now you just cast on people at low health and it's always on a 15-second cooldown. Shadow Covenant with Atonements alone can handle pretty heavy damage, but let's also get into some of the cooldowns you have at your disposal. Rapture makes your Power Word Shield absorb 40% more and cast instantly. You will generally use this when you know there will be damage coming out soon, not after the fact. Just cast Rapture and shield your whole party, then go into a Shadow Covenant to do some major healing. This is also a nice thing to throw out at the beginning of a trash pull where you suspect there's going to be moderate to heavy damage. Barrier reduces all damage by 20%, can be rotated in with your other cooldowns to take some pressure off, granted that people stand in it. And then we have our new spell, Ultimate Penitence, which looks awesome and has the potential to do a load of healings, but also has some pitfalls. If you're stuck in the air for almost 5 seconds, and that's enough time to get killed by all sorts of interesting things, even things that appear to be below you, you're going to want to use this similar to how you'd use a Druid's Tranquility or Divine Hymn when you know you won't need to move for about 5 seconds. Also make sure that you've gotten an ally targeted if you want to use this as a heal. If you've got an enemy targeted, it will just do DPS. Not gonna lie guys, I'm still kind of using trial and error to see if I even want to run this in Mythic Plus, and while I'm leaning toward yes, its long cooldown and limited uses can be a bit of a turnoff. You've also got 2 charges of pain suppression, a single target external damage reduction of 40%. I'd strongly advise you think about using this on yourself a lot, as priests can be very squishy and have pretty limited defensive options. But with 2 charges, you can kind of use one as a personal defensive and hold the second one for someone that you know is going to be taking a lot of damage soon. On a given boss fight in a dungeon, typically you'll start with Rapture, then rotate through Barrier and Ultimate Penitence, and you'll get a second use of Rapture, and that's often enough to get you through any fight. So just rotate through your cooldowns as you know the big damage is coming. As a final tip to new disc players, the hardest part about this spec is always learning to trust your atonement healing. Do not fall into the trap of trying to single target heal people up when they get low with things like hard cast flash heals. Once you start doing that, you're going off the rails as a disc priest. You need to be disciplined, about keeping atonements up and proactive about incoming damage. Once you fall behind in the health bars as disc, it can be kind of hard to catch them back up again. Let's talk utility. This is not Priest's strong suit, and what unique utility we have took a hit in the patch notes this season. Mass Dispel is now on a whopping 2-minute cooldown, meaning you won't be able to cheese mechanics nearly as much, but might need to be more choosy about when you send this. Power Infusion, while still a very powerful spell, has had its duration touched up a bit. With Power Infusion, you can go as far as coordinating with your group mates about when they use their cooldowns or tracking party cooldowns on your bars. If you're simply a Pug Lord, you can just cast it on the highest DPS player, more or less on cooldown. The biggest mistake you can make with it is just to sit on it. I use a weak aura that yells at me when a DPS uses a cooldown and PI is up, and I typically just send it at that point when I'm healing in a random pug, so I'll link that in the description if you're interested. Don't forget that Psychic Stream can stop mobs from casting, although it's a bit clunky to use since you need to be pretty close to mobs. We're the only healer without access to a traditional interrupt though, so trying to use this for key stops can be really helping yourself out. You've also got Mind Soothe to decrease the aggro range of mobs. There is a tremendous amount of uses for this in Season 2 and in Season 3 so far. Like there may not be quite as many, but you never know what routes will emerge after everyone gets their hands on the new dungeons. It's also nice to just throw it out if you're concerned about someone butt pulling something. One thing Priest is really good at is kind of solo managing affixes, so you use this to your advantage. For bursting, you'll want to hold Mass Dispel for larger pulls rather than just sending it every time now following the nerf on its cooldown, but you're still allowed to manage bursting stacks that no other healing class can. You can use Dominate Mind on incorporeal weeks to turn those mobs to your side. On afflicted weeks, you can use Power Word Life in a pinch to quickly heal up a second ghost after you dispel one of them if you get in trouble. You can talent into Phantasm on entangling weeks to easily remove every entangle. Since as a priest your utility is somewhat lacking, it's really important to use what you do have to bring value to your group and show your team how awesome you could be. And since you are awesome, wouldn't it be awesome to thumb up this video if you liked it, or subscribe to see more WoW content in the future? I think it would. You can also catch me live here and over on twitch.tv/DonkeyStorm. Happy disking, friend. Good luck in Season 3.